over the past few weeks, as I was making all these videos about IPOs, different industries, looking at their total addressable market, I realized I haven't really seen or looked at the number of not only the TAM, but like how many videos per day an average viewer realistically watches, and what is the chance that one of our videos is that video? To help answer this question, I did a little bit of research, pulled a few different stats. Again, they vary, so this is not like Bible and the exact precise numbers, because you'll see a lot of them are assumed variables based on some of the other statistics, and some of the websites run their own research. They provide different data, and you can really find things like fluctuating by like 20-30% for some of these metrics, with except of the total global population, which we roughly know is about to be 8.25 billion people. Now, you cannot just take that entire population and say, like, these are the people who we target. Not right now, because only about 6 billion of them, right, have access to the devices and the internet access to be able to watch at least 480p videos. And I know 480p might seem like a low cut, but to me, that's realistically, like, I grew up in a third world country, and again, things change right now. There's broadband and all those things. But realistically, there's probably like about 20% of the people who truly watch the videos in like 72p plus, right, resolution, where the rest of the world, probably like 80% of the population, still consumes a lot of these videos in 480p. That's why, like, if you're stressing too much about the quality of a 4K video and you have predominantly international audience, don't. Now, out of that, you also need to assume people need to sleep, right? So on average, and stats can vary by country. Some countries, apparently France, on average, averages so closer to 8 hours. Some of the other world averages more closer to 7 hours. So I picked like the lower average, and about basically of 7 hours of sleep, that leaves 17 hours of awake time. And again, not all of us, I know some do, but not all of us sit there and watch videos all the time. It's about 22%, and then excluding the legacy, basically excluding the TV viewership of like cable experience, right? Or again, like you popped in the DVD or you're watching a movie, excluding some of those, because if you look at some of the stats, it's interesting that the TV viewership on average still can be pretty high in some areas. It's like up to 4 hours a day, where to me, we're looking predominantly at things, and I don't have my phone next to me. I was going to show you my phone, but basically we're looking at the stuff that you can watch on your phone, plus the connected TV experience in case you lean back and you decide to go and watch the TV, the YouTube, say, on the TV, which is also an interesting concept, by the way, small tangential thing. But apparently several statistic companies that I saw refer to TV watching of social media as a lean back experience. The same goes for like Netflix and movies. You basically lean back and you enjoy or watch TV, where if you watch something on the phone, you lean forward. I thought they meant you're just sitting on the toilet and you lean forward, but no, apparently it's just the definition. I'll leave it at that. So 22% basically is what we have to play with, which works out to be about 224 minutes per day per person. So this is what we're dealing with. So essentially, imagine, and I'm reflecting back on my viewership, it probably sounds about right. Within it, at least for me, there's some passive viewership. What I mean by this is that I can be like washing dishes and I'm popping and I'm like, watching Lemonade Stand on YouTube, but really it's a lock screen. I'm using one of the greatest features on the premium, besides not having ads, being able to watch YouTube passively with a locked screen, because I can just pop it on my pocket. I don't have to worry about pressing accidentally any buttons. I have my headphones on, and I can do chores and listen to something that may be a little bit less visual, right? I wouldn't listen to Mark Roberts' video, for example, but like Lemonade Stand podcast style content, absolutely great experience. And yeah, I would probably average out to about like what it works out to be a little bit under 4 hours a day. Significant amount, but this is what you have to play with. But there's other ways we can look at the stats as well, which I decided to go a little bit deeper and see. Okay, but how does it averages out if we start looking at some of the social media? And a lot of the stats that like YouTube's, TikToks, Instagrams of the world share, they're really in the viewers, like number of average monthly viewers, and they're in billions. So I kind of tried to mix it in a little bit, and that's where you see me going from the minutes back right now to the billions of watch hours, to then bring it back down using their stats, what that might look like for us. Because if you look, and let me take this away. So basically, if you look at 6 billion times 224 minutes, it works out roughly to be 23 billion of hours a day of video consumption that's happening around the world, right? Again, using some of these averages. Only about 10 billion of those I actually spend on social media. So now we're kind of like excluding a little bit some of these like Patreons of the world, right? We're excluding the Netflixes of the world, streaming services. So let's purely look at what are we dealing with social media. And I'm focusing on just three. So YouTube, TikTok, and IG Reels, right? Three predominant sources of video consumption in social media. And not surprisingly, YouTube leads it with about a third of the entire consumption. TikTok is not far behind, and Reels being distant third in that regard, although still pretty impressive numbers, specifically for the reels. And what that works out to be, if you essentially go and you say, okay, let me bring it back to the 6 billion of actual viewers who have access to the 4080p video, it actually works out to be a lower estimate, right? Specifically for the social media, of only about 102 minutes, so less than half of this, right? Or 1.7 hours a day, which is something to consider, right? And again, from my viewing habits, and you can argue I'm chronologically online, but I'm also thinking about the fact that when I'm on social media, I don't always watch videos, right? Like it can be Twitter, Nick's one, so I'll be scrolling there, commenting on a bunch of that stuff. Also, part of this consumption, don't forget, it's not just creators, right? All of a sudden, whether you're looking at 224 minutes or 102 minutes, you're still watching other things. Like again, I'm watching NBA content, right? Or maybe I'm watching sometimes I like watch highlights of sports, right? So it's like I'm on a sports channel. I might be watching, I don't know, there's certain scene that came up and I'm just sitting there chilling before I go to bed. Instead of like watching the entire movie, I'm like, oh, there was this cool fight scene in Raid 2. Let me just quickly watch it just like for fun, for the funsies, right? I do that sometimes, and it's like you go and you spend 15-20 minutes on that, right? So it's not going 100% to the creators. And this is where I kind of like start thinking about some of the thoughts. What I would want to leave with is that it is a zero sum game. In all reality, as much as we all try to be like, yeah, but like we're all creators, we're all friends, which we are. We should be collaborating, we should be exchanging information, we should be sharing each other's experience to like, try to lift all the boats, so to speak, with a single tide. But we have to be realistic about the fact that it is a zero sum game, right? Like what we're dealing with is that anytime you watch my video, you're not watching someone else's video, right? Every time you watch highlights of the World Cup, you're not watching some other creator's video, right? Like this is a trade off. And with that, when we're looking kind of like at some of these percentages, right, like we're looking at the fact that, there's still about 22%, that number can go up, the pie can grow basically more, right? There's maybe legacy shrinks, people spend less on time, for example, they do cable cutting, they spend less time on the TV, more time on social media, the pie will grow. But also you see how many people get access. And again, coming back to the phones, the access to being a creator is completely democratized. And I figured I should probably zoom in a little bit. It's democratized, right? Now anyone with a phone can be a creator. So also the number of options increases, but also other mediums develop, right? And people do other things, and there's new forms of medium. Who knows? Maybe like AR, VR takes off at some point, right? Like that's gonna take away time, or maybe someone develops some other new experience. And also there are in-person live experiences, right? Like I think it was like someone at Netflix once said, like we are all competing with sleep. Ultimately, that's one which is much harder to fight. And even then, for folks like myself who might average a little bit less than 7 hours, right? Like we are those who maybe see social media and the content creators win because we sacrifice a little bit of sleep to watch a little bit of extra content. But that's a hard limit, right? And then you can throw in the work and you can throw in the maybe eating. And even then, like a lot of my consumption is happening, say, during my lunch break at work, right? So you start seeing the pattern that, okay, as much as this pie will grow and as much as people will spend potentially more time on this, there's going to be a lot more options for them to do, right? Even within the video space. So let alone outside of it. So it's something to keep in mind. The other perspective to look at it is if you're a long form creator like myself, right? On average, I see a lot of the videos today like trend towards closer to like 20 minutes, right? Or maybe that's my just pattern, what YouTube recommends to me, but I see less and less videos sub 10 minutes in a long form content, right? Like it's almost like if you're making something with a sub 10 minutes, it might as well be a short, I guess. So that's why you see more and more content drifting to the longer watch time, which again means less videos. And whether you use the 107 minutes, right, like using the social media stats, or if you're just doing more aggregate number that I showed of 224 minutes, that's only 5 to 10 videos a day, maybe 11, right? That's about it. So imagine, and I'm thinking again, Ben, reflecting, like how many videos did I watch yesterday? Yeah, I can come up with probably about like 6 or 7 videos that I watched yesterday, and 1 or 2 of them were like 30, 40 minutes, right? So like this morning, I watched almost a 35-minute video while I was doing other things, while I was, whatever, making pancakes for my kids, right? There's not that many options out there, so to speak. There are not many slots basically available within each individual. So the chances of your video being that one can seem pretty low, right? And also, we again have to keep in mind the seasonality, the global events, the fact that the niche that you're in may matter. Like my niche, relatively small, it's even less of opportunities, right, to be in front of the viewers, hence the number of views that I usually get, aside from other things I can do better. But also seasonality, meaning like, again, if it's colder outside, people are less likely to go outside, so they're more likely to sit at home and watch more content. Global events happen, World Cup happening right now. Like I watch a ton of World Cup highlights. Like I like World Cup. I don't have time to watch full matches. I usually just stick to the playoffs at that point. So I watch all the highlights for all the group matches, and each average highlight is like 70 to 20 minutes. So that's that, right? There are 2 matches at least a day, 2 to 3. So that burns half of basically available slots with me for other creators, and I do fall back on my backlog, and some of the creators who've been uploading videos for the past week or two I haven't watched. I just like save them to watch later and hope I'll come back to that list at some point. And that's where all kind of like brings me back to this question I've asked in prior videos. Like, you have to consider, why would the viewer hire you? What I mean by this is, if you haven't seen my videos, but do check them out. I have a few of those on the whole conversation about how should you be thinking about your niche, and how you should be applying the jobs to be done framework to essentially think through your content strategy. This is the key question here, because if you look at all these stats that I shared, right, and you consider the fact that there's about 5 to 10, let's call it 10 for just an easy number, being a little bit more aggressive. There are 10 video slots per day per viewer. What will make your video be one of those 10, right? And that's where you have to consider that. You have to really think deeply about who is your audience, right? Like, who are you trying to target? What kind of value you provide? And that's the whole concept in that video, and I'll briefly describe it, but definitely check out the full version of it. But it's essentially, there's certain value you provide, right? Like, you inform, educate, or entertain. So one of those three, you provide that value. Why would the person care about that specific topic, right? Like, it's tough. Like, this is what makes it challenging. And as the market grows, I don't think the challenge will get less. It's going to get more emphasized, because of the fact that, again, the pie grows, but also the number of creators grow, but also you're dealing with the algorithm, and you're dealing with a lot of other things. So that's where, like, as much as, for example, I'm not the hugest fan of the fact that like packaging matters so much, but it does, right? Like, that's why the packaging matters. That's why the clear title and thumbnail matters. That's why it's important for you to open the video and provide quickly information, because we're spoiled as viewers as well. Your viewers, my viewers, us as viewers, we're spoiled. Like, how many times you click on the video and within the first like 30 seconds to a minute, you don't see the value that was promised, you're out. You're clicking out. On the short form media, it's seconds, right? It's like first couple of seconds, swipe, you're out. This is why a lot of these things matter, and you have to really continuously think about that value and the value exchange and the type of value you're providing to your viewer, right? Like, forget about algorithms, forget about all those other things. They will matter as you scale, but at the very beginning, when you think about those 10 slots, how do you justify being one of those videos? And this is where it all comes back to. You can justify it if your viewer receives higher perceived value within those 20 minutes than they would have otherwise expected, right? Like, if they're clicking on this and you did a really good job and you provided like whichever niche you're in, and if you aim to always respect the viewer's time, respect the fact that there are only 10 slots, respect that they only spend about those like whatever 2 to 3 hours online watching videos, you got to respect their choice. And once they click on your videos, you got to respect that, you got to deliver. If you don't care about those things, if you don't take them into account, you're going to be one of those videos that people are going to bounce out of, just because of the fact, again, they only have 10 slots. They're not going to waste their precious one slot on the video that doesn't deliver on the promise of the value. So again, that's an interesting perspective. As I said, I didn't have too many preconceived notions. Like, I was thinking about my viewing patterns, and I know I don't watch TV. I barely watch streaming services unless I hang out right with my wife, and like we were doing that viewership. So it's like YouTube primarily is my source of video consumption. And so thinking about the patterns, thinking about on average how many videos I watch a day, and I was looking at my history just to double check, and that was about it, right? Like, It seems right to me. Again, there are a lot of assumptions in this data, so you have to take it with a huge grain of salt, but keep this in mind. Keep in mind the fact that your video is only one of 10 videos that the viewer watches that day. Respect their choice, make them enjoy and get as much value as you can deliver, and hopefully that's way above what they expected. And that will make you successful in the space. And then just continue thinking and applying the same approach. Think about that value piggy bank I've discussed on my channel before. Keep contributing to it, and you will be more and more consistently within those 10 selected slots. This is how it happens for me. I have some creators who I know they respect my time and they always deliver. They always get my click. Where some of the other ones who over time got worse, I no longer check out their videos. And that's a brutal reality of the world that we live in. Some of those creators took away the slot from the other creators, and the other creators lost my view. And that's what's happening to all of us every single day for every single video that we deliver. So keep that in mind. Make sure you're one of those 10 slots, and I'll see you next Saturday. Peace.